Y'all ready for the word? Oh, I'm so excited because it's so good. Now listen, because I want to bring you to where we are. Today we may hit some uncomfortable spaces. That's okay? Is that okay with you? Yeah. Because sometimes the word, it says it's a double-edged sword, so it does cut going in and cuts going out sometimes. And I believe the Lord just wanted to just go down some pathways with you today with His word. So, and it's all in alignment with what we've been doing, because over the past few weeks, we've been teaching on the importance of digging wells. Somebody say digging wells. And we've been digging, because a lot of us don't really know what that means. We've been saying the phrase, but we don't know what it means. We've been digging to find something greater than ourselves. We've been digging wells, digging to find living water. We've been digging until we figure out what God has called us to do. We've been digging for purpose. We've been digging wells, digging to try to rediscover what God called us to do. That's what we've been doing. We've been digging past some uncomfortable layers. When we say digging wells, digging past your emotions, digging past your disappointments. We've been digging past you being uncomfortable. We've been digging past your doubts. That's what we've been doing. We've been digging wells. And a lot of us in the room was like, well, we're only on this series just because, we're changing the name of the church and all this stuff. But let me submit to you that that's wrong. This whole series has been about you. A well is built up of many stones. And it was prophesied this morning by our intercessory team that you're the stones. There is no well without you. But we've been digging. Somebody yell out, digging. We've been discovering what God has called us to do. Digging it out. And so when the Bible, just a precursor, when the Bible talks about wells, those were holes that were dug in the ground in the desert. In the desert. Sometimes, Brother Orlando, these holes were 20 feet to 75 feet deep. Ooh, somebody said, oh. We say that because we would stop digging at 5 feet. We say that because we would give up 10 feet in. Sometimes we're like, man, I'm digging, and I ain't found God yet, so I'm giving up. Can you imagine digging 75 feet in the heat? Back then, the people who dug wells, they were searching for something. They were digging for living water. And I believe so wholeheartedly in this hour, God is calling us to do the same type of digging. We have to start digging until we find what God has called us to do. We have to dig until we find the living water of God. We have to dig until we're in alignment with what God has called us to do, when He's called us to do it, where He's called us to be. Now, the term living water refers to water that is found in the ground, and they call it living water because this water provided life for those who found it. This water was purified by the ground. It was purified in the process of how the Lord set this earth up to work. Living water is probably the best water you've ever tasted. It has the right minerals and everything in it to sustain people who lived in the desert. They also called it living water because it was moving water that moved throughout the earth. Water that was in the earth but wasn't a part of the earth. Somebody called it over here. We'll get it. We'll dig in that another day. Did somebody say, that was me? That was me. I got it. I heard the Lord. Check on me. But, and I'm just trying to break this down before we start digging. These people, they would dig these wells, and can you imagine digging in the heat? In the desert, not just Cincinnati heat. That's a different type of heat. Anybody ever been to Africa, like right around the equator? That's a different type of heat. It's a heat that hurts being in it. It's a heat. Look at these movies. When they're in the desert, they cover themselves up. It's a type of heat that you would rather cover yourself up from the sun and be more hot to be exposed in the sun. Now, these people were digging out in the desert. Regardless of the bugs, regardless of the heat, regardless of how hungry they were, they just kept digging. They dug when they were tired. They dug when they were upset. They dug wells when everything was unfair. They dug when they felt uncomfortable. They kept digging when people changed the name of their city. Keep digging. Y'all think I ain't heard about 5, 6 people say, this ain't the name change, ain't for me. Keep digging. They dug when they didn't understand. They dug when they felt uncomfortable. They kept digging and kept digging. They dug when they were thirsty. But the reason they kept digging was they were digging for something greater than themselves. When you dug a well, you weren't digging for you. You were digging for your family. You were digging for your children. You were digging for your community. Digging a well wasn't a selfish thing. Digging a well was that the earth could receive living water. And I believe God's calling us to keep digging, to keep pressing forward. When they were digging, can you imagine? I want to bring you there. Can you imagine 50 feet in and you ain't found the water yet? In the heat, in a hole, you just digging and digging and digging. You imagine how tired your arms must be. Mind you, you're just digging with a shovel. All you had was a shovel, and you're just digging. My arms would be tired. Their arms probably felt like spaghetti. You ain't found water yet. But they decided to just keep on pressing because they were digging with a purpose. They were digging with faith, believing that at some point as I'm digging, surely his goodness and mercy will meet me here and I will find living water. If I keep digging, somehow, somewhere, God is going to meet me here and I'm going to find what I need. But I got to dig past how I feel. I got to dig past my misunderstanding. I got to dig past the fact that I feel it's unfair I'm in the desert. I got to dig past what's going on in my life. I got to dig past my mom not wanting me out here digging. I got to dig past all of that. Because I'm digging for something greater than me. I got to keep digging when no one understands why I'm digging. I hear the Lord saying he's called a lot of us to dig, but we gave up too early. We stopped digging because we didn't like how it felt. We stopped digging because we were uncomfortable with what it felt like to dig. We stopped digging because we reached a layer of, you got to dig past this pride. I don't want to keep digging. But you got to dig past this perversion issue you got. Let me go dig somewhere else. You got to dig past your unforgiveness. That's a hard layer. That's the sediment layer right there. That's the hard part. You don't want to dig past that. A lot of us, because of we've reached certain layers in the ground, we just decided to stop. Or we'll say, maybe I'll dig later. Maybe I'll come back and start digging when I'm ready. When I get myself together, I'll dig again. Somebody say, keep digging. There's always another layer to dig. You can always go deeper. You can always find more. Now watch this. The enemy can't force you to stop digging. We like to blame the enemy. Oh, it's because of the devil and what he's doing in my life. No, he can't stop you from digging. All he can do is persuade you and tempt you to stop, to give up. All the enemy can do is say that you're not worthy enough to dig here. All he can say is, remember that thing that you did a couple years ago? Yeah, God remembers that. He ain't really forgive you for that. You should probably stop digging because there's no favor there. He's not even going to let you have the water down there. All he can do is just tempt you and just confuse you. So we stop digging. All the enemy can do is say, well, remember that thing that happened this morning? Yeah, God's not pleased with that. You're unworthy of digging. You're unworthy. Go ahead and dig. Watch. You're going to be embarrassed. Is that really God? Is God really telling you to do that? That's why it don't make sense to nobody else, because it's not God. You should just stop digging. And our response is, cool. We make agreements with the enemy. Not even know it. I say, keep digging. Keep digging. We're going to reach some places today, y'all. And because the Lord had to deal with me on this. And he just wrecked me. So I'm going to try to make sure that I stay close to my notes, because I don't want to miss something. Okay? Usually they're like, man, you're walking around. I'm not going to do a lot of that today. I want to make sure that I say exactly what God desires me to say. So we started looking at Genesis 26. Genesis 26, and we haven't been able to get out of that. It's the story of Isaac, son of Abraham, digging during a time of a famine. So we've shared the story multiple times, but long story short, there was a famine, and Isaac he wanted to leave. He wanted to go to the more easier place. But then the Lord stopped him and said, Isaac, you stay here. You stay here and you keep digging. And when you keep digging, I'm going to bless you. That's because there are things, my promises, that I have not fulfilled yet. And you're a part of this plan. So unless you see these promises being fulfilled, you don't stop digging. You stay right where you are. So today, our story starts right when Isaac said yes. Okay, Lord, I'm going to dig. So let's go to Genesis 12, 17. With Genesis 26, 12 through 17. I'm going to read the New King James Version. I want you to listen very closely, because there's some things we're going to pull out today that we didn't pull out yet. Genesis 26, verse 12. It says, Then Isaac sowed in the land and reaped in the same year 100-fold. And the Lord blessed him. Verse 13 says, The man began to prosper and continued prospering until he was very prosperous. For he had possessions of flock and possessions of herds and great number of servants. So the Philistines envied him. Verse 15, Now the Philistines had stopped up all the wells which his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham his father, and they had filled them with earth. And Abimelech said to Isaac, Go away from us, for you are much mightier than we are. There's something we miss here, because the question is, well, why would the Philistine king say that? The scripture says Isaac was blessed 100-fold. There wasn't just plants. It wasn't just the harvest. If you study what really happened here, you find out that Isaac showed up to the Philistine village with 300 plus soldiers. By the end of the year, he had 30,000. 30,000 trained soldiers willing to submit to him. So the king Philistine said, that's why it says, what does it say? You're too mighty for us. You got to go. Freaking out. You can't come in here and have military strength in my town. Isaac, man, I didn't do anything. I'm just following the Lord. It's not my fault God's blessing me. I'm just in the will of God. I know this may scare you, but listen, I'm here to help you. I'm here. Listen, I'm giving all of my crops over to you. I'm feeding the town. I'm doing everything I can because I'm in alignment with the Lord. Maybe he sent me here to bring a blessing to this neighborhood. But they looked at his army and said, oh no. You went from 300 to 30,000, which means it's going to keep growing. You got to go. You got to go. So watch this. So they kicked him out, right? Verse 17. Then Isaac departed from there and pitched a tent in the valley of Gerar and dwelt there. Isaac left the city and had settled in the valley. Me and Brother Orlando were talking about, have you ever been pulled from something great, kicked out from something great, and found yourself in the valley? The valley is not an easy place. The valley, you're open to the elements. You're no longer in a fortified city. The valley, you're open to the animals. You're open to all the craziness. You're open to all the weather. You are exposed in the valley. The valley is not a place you want to live. It's not a place you want to be. But they kicked him out and sent him in the valley. But my question is, why was Isaac okay with going to the valley? The family of God have the same language. When David wrote Psalm 23, that wasn't a brand new concept. The word of God's word. When he wrote Psalm 23, it wasn't a brand new concept. So Isaac knew that the Lord provides in the valley. So when we read Psalm 23, these are the same things that Isaac is internalizing. Psalm 23 says, the Lord is my shepherd. This is the thought process Isaac had. While I'm in the valley, even though they kicked me out, even though I feel like this is unfair, even though I don't like what's going on, what I do know is that the Lord is my shepherd and I lack nothing. If he provided for me in the city, he'll provide for me out here. He said, listen, I'm not going to leave Gerar. I'm going to stay in the promised land because God said he's going to bless me here, and he's shown evidence that he's done it already. So his mindset was like, the Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He lets me rest in green grass, which means he's saying, I'm looking at this valley and I see green when everyone else sees desert. He gives me new strength. He guides me along the right paths as he's promised. God is going to fulfill his promise while I'm out here in the valley. Even though I'm in the deepest, darkest valley, the most toughest time in my life, I won't be afraid because I know God is with me out here. His shepherd's staff comforts me in the valley. So that's why Isaac was okay to just, you kick me out. You just gave opportunity for the Lord to move in my life. I heard God say that a lot of us are in a valley moment. And we're complaining about being in the valley and not recognizing who God is. And not recognizing what his word says he will do for us in every valley moment. The older saints used to say he's the same God on the mountain and the same God in the... Some of the older saints still used to say he's a lily in the valley. I get fruit and harvest in the valley where the sun really doesn't hit, where the weather really isn't conducive for God to move, but he's still a lily in the valley. Now here's a crucial part of this message. There are 5 wells Isaac had to dig. And we're going to expose these 5 wells today. There are 5 wells Isaac had to dig. 5 wells Isaac had to dig through to really see God in the land. 5 wells Isaac had to dig in a famine. While everything was dying around him, there were 5 wells Isaac still had to dig. I heard the Lord say, you got to expose it today, Troy. Because if we don't dig these 5 wells in our personal life, we put ourselves in a place of missing God. If we don't dig these 5 wells in our life while chasing God, we may miss them. You put yourself in a place of being out of alignment. I yell out 5 wells. So make sure you got your notes because you're going to have to write these down. You're going to have to write these down because I want to make sure we get through them. We're going to have to write them down. So the first well Isaac had to dig was a well of faith. A well of faith. Write it down. A well of faith. Going back to Genesis 26:17. Listen what it says. It says, then Isaac departed from there, and he pitched a tent in the valley of Gerar, and dwelt there. And Isaac dug again the wells of water which they had dug in the days of Abraham, his father, for the Philistines had stopped them up after the death of Abraham. Isaac decided to dig even though he was kicked out, saying, I know the promises of the Lord aren't fulfilled yet, so I'm going to believe and I'm going to put my trust in God and I'm going to keep digging. I'm going to put my faith in this shovel. I'm going to find God even when I don't like what's going on. Isaac decided to dig when he felt it was unfair. Isaac had to put his faith in the fact that God was not done yet and that God is faithful to fulfill every promise, just like he says in his word. Isaac had to keep digging, saying, I know what God promised and I know he won't fail. Just because they kick me out, I can't stop digging. I can't stop chasing God. I can't stop following what he told me to do. Many of us have been in this place where we stop digging because we're put in a place that we don't understand. We're put in a place where we feel like it's unfair. We're put in a place where we feel like, listen, I didn't do anything to get here. All I was doing was following God. And why have I been put in the valley now? Isaac's well of faith was restarting everything. I already had a well that I was digging. I already had a well that was prosperous. I already had a situation going on. Now you're telling me I have to start over. But Isaac was like, you know what? But because God's faithful, I don't care if I have to start this relationship again. I don't care if I have to go back to school again. I don't care if I have to start from the bottom and work my way back up again. Because I believe I had to put my faith in what God said and keep digging. Isaac had to dig a well of faith, saying, I trust you when it's unfair. I trust you when I lose friends and family over this thing. I trust you when I'm uncomfortable. I trust you if I have to start over. I trust you when it hurts. That's a real hurt. When you didn't do anything wrong. When you were just being in the will of God. That cuts really deep. But Isaac said, I'm going to trust you, God. Even here, right now. I'm going to trust you, God, if I have to get a new job. I'm going to trust you if I have to start over. But then Isaac, I believe there was something that Isaac remembered when he lost his comfort. He lost his comfort. He lost his security. He lost the support system. But there was one verse prior to that I knew Isaac had on his mind, where it says in Genesis 26:3, the Lord said, dwell in the land and I will bless you. No, I'm not the only one who's been in a valley place where there was just one scripture I had to go by. I may not know all of them, but I got this one. Dwell in the land, and I will bless you. I will be with you, and I will bless you. I hear the Lord even saying now to encourage you. You may not have to know this whole book, but if you grab a hold of a couple of things in here, I'm telling you it's going to be all right. You grab a hold of a couple of them, you learn some more later. But grab what you need and let that, I told Brother Orlando I ain't want to preach this. Man, I can't preach this one. I can't. Such a sensitive place for me. Really learned what it meant to hide his word in your heart. When Isaac was in the valley, he said, I'm going to dig again. I'm willing to dig because your promises haven't been fulfilled yet. Isaac knew that faith without works is dead. It's the same word. He said, I got to put some action to this and keep digging. The one well you have to dig is a well of faith. Dig when it hurts and keep trusting. Dig with faith. Dig even though you don't understand. Dig knowing that the Lord has plans for you, and these plans are for your good and not to harm you. I remember a moment in my life when I was digging. I'll explain later, but I was digging the moment in my life. And there was a song that I just kept in my spirit. It won't always be like this. The Lord will perfect what's concerning me. For sooner or later, it's gonna turn in my favor. He's working it out for me. He's working it out for you. The second well Isaac had to dig. Write this down, a well of perseverance. A well of perseverance. Genesis 26:17, it says, Isaac's servants, this is after he redug the original wells. It says, Isaac's servants dug in the valley and found a well of running water there. But the herdsmen of Gerar, these are people he knew, the ones that just kicked him out. The herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, this water is ours. So he called the name of the well Ezek, because they quarreled with him. So I studied what the word Ezek means, and Ezek means heated disagreement. Ezek means contention. Isaac called this well Ezek because the people he used to be cool with didn't believe what he was doing was God's will. It's friction in the relationship. The people around him didn't support him. Ezek meant that they fussed and disagreed over the well he was digging. I heard the Lord say, you have to keep digging even though those around you don't agree with the well you're digging. Sometimes your friends won't see it. Sometimes your family won't see it. Sometimes your spouse won't see it. Sometimes your church leaders won't see it. But if God has called you to dig, then my encouragement to you is to keep digging. I'm not saying, listen to me, I'm not saying don't look for wise counsel or confirmation. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the well God has called you to dig may not make sense to anybody right now but you. How God talks, he gives it to you first. He ain't gonna give it to somebody else first and then bring it to you. When somebody else brings it to you, it should be confirmation. That's how prophecy works. Don't let somebody come to you with something brand new that you ain't never heard before. You would have heard the promise first. God would have whispered it in your night hour before. You may not be able to explain it, but then a prophet comes and says, here's what God's saying. Let me make sense of what you're feeling. But this well you have to dig, you got to dig it when nobody else can see it. You got to dig it when it doesn't make sense to anybody else but you. You might be the light in the dark place. Darkness just wants to keep it dark. There might... Ezek, they also wanted to take the well from him. There might be people around you that you're going to have to dig through that attempt to hijack what God is doing in your life. He's right, because that's where I'm going. They will attempt to take what God's doing in your life and try to control it. There's a word that describes that. It's called manipulation. Friends will do it. Family will do it. Spouses will do it. Church leaders will do it. Ain't no church leader that far away from sin. They will try to manipulate what God's doing. That's what he called it out. Oh, you know what? This is a well I got to dig. There's friction in my relationships, and they want what I got. God says you're going to have to persevere. You're going to have to dig through the betrayal. Because can you imagine how he felt? How Isaac felt? You're going to have to dig through the betrayal. You're going to have to dig through the hurt. You're going to have to dig through the shade that's thrown. You got to keep digging. If God said it, you got to believe it. Now the third well, watch this. The third well Isaac dug. I'm going to call it the well of endurance. The well of endurance. Write that down. Genesis 26:21 says, then they dug another well. So they left the well of Ezekiel. It says, then they dug another well, but they quarreled over that also, and he named it Sitnah. Now, Sitnah, watch what this means. This is crazy. Sitnah means hostility. Also, Sitnah also means the accuser. But then it adds on to it. The definition says, Sitnah means the accuser who sits and waits looking for opportunities to attack. Isaac had to dig through the attacks of the enemy. Remember, Ezekiel was the attacks of the people. Isaac had to dig through the attacks of the enemy now. But the definition says the enemy that sits and waits for an opportunity to attack. That's a conniving spirit. And Isaac had to dig and endure through everything the enemy threw at him. He had to endure through every punch, through every time the enemy knocked him down. Isaac had to endure and keep digging through the discouragement that the enemy brought. Isaac had to endure and keep digging every time the enemy tried to distract him. Isaac had to endure and keep digging every time he was knocked down. Isaac had to keep digging and endure, saying, you're not going to knock me down. Even though you were waiting on me. Some of you are digging that well right now, where the enemy is waiting in the darkness just for an opportunity to get in and mess everything up. That's why we pray prayers, raise a hedge of protection around me. Angels surround me. Because Isaac labeled the enemy as someone who sits and waits. So the enemy isn't just like, I'm going to get in front of you and try to, no. I'm going to wait till you open the door. Then I'm going to wreck shop. Keep the door closed. The Lord said, behold, I stand at the door and I'm knocking. The enemy does that too. Let me in. Enemy. Have you ever thought about what the enemy looks like? It's not this goat thing with red. No. The Bible describes him as the most beautiful angel. Looked good. Felt good. It was great to have him in the room. And he sang. Sounded good. The enemy, when he sits and waits on you, when he jumps in, it's going to be something that you like. It ain't going to be something you're going to be like, oh, no. No, it's going to be something. He's coming in a way that you like. He's coming in something just literally dressed for you. That's how conniving he is. That's how he slips in. He like, oh, you like, man, how did I get addicted to this? He like, oh, little you know I've been here. You let me in a long time ago. We got to keep going. You had to dig. God's calling you to dig through every attack of the enemy. Every attack. And the reason you have to dig through this, even the Bible goes on in Ephesians, it says, you got to know who you're fighting. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers, against darkness in this dark world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Some of you guys are so focused on fighting the people, and you're missing that you don't let the enemy in. He was sitting and waiting on you to be distracted about what they did. He was sitting and waiting on you to harbor offense. He was sitting and waiting on you to harbor unforgiveness. He was sitting and waiting on you just to let your friends sit and argue and you'll do nothing about it. He was sitting and waiting on you to give him room to come in. And then you look up like, man, dang, why is everything all jacked up? Because he's like, because you let me in. Well, no, I've been praying, I've been speaking in tongues, I've been doing all of this, and I've been reading, he's like, yeah, but you still watch porn and you let me in that day. Yeah, you let me in this conversation you weren't supposed to be having. Yeah, you let me in when you stole. Yeah, you let me in when you lied. Yeah. Conniving, sitting and waiting. He comes in places where in doors that you forgot that you left open. Okay, come on. The encouragement is that the Lord said in John 16 that he's already overcome the world. He's already overcome the enemy. That's why you have to trust in him and keep digging. Even when he attacks. Now, mind you, this was an attack that already happened. Even when he attacks, you keep digging. You keep pressing. Can y'all give me a couple moments just for these last two? Because this is getting good. The fourth well Isaac had to dig was a well of contentment. Write that down. Well of contentment. Well of contentment. Genesis 26 says, and he moved from there and dug another well. Now he left what the enemy was doing. He moved away from what the people were trying to do. The scripture says he went far out. He said, you know what? They're going to keep tripping. He went far out. Then it says, he moved from there and dug another well, and they did not quarrel over it. So he called the name Rehoboth, because he said, for now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in this land. Now, you got to catch what's happening here, because there's a lot of things that's said that aren't said right here when you know the culture. The well Isaac had to dig, this contentment well, Isaac had to be content with digging. Content means having joy, happiness, and peace right where you are. Having joy, there it is, having joy, happiness, and peace in the middle of it. He had to dig a well, putting on a garment of praise. Look at where he's at. Now he's far out. He's further in the valley than he was before. And Isaac said, I have to dig with happiness. I have to dig with holding my peace. I have to dig with joy. I have to be okay with where I am. Why? Because I know God won't leave me alone. So this well you have to dig. Gotta be okay with digging it alone. The well you have to dig is literally seeing the situation and saying, but I'm not going to receive that for my life right here now. I'm going to dig, and I'm going to dig with joy. That's different than just digging with faith. It's intentionally bishoping how you feel. Well of contentment is bishoping your emotions while you're digging. I'm going to dig with joy. I'm going to pray while I'm digging. I'm going to dig and not give up, but I'm going to dig with peace. I'm going to say, this is crazy, but I'm going to have peace in it. I'm just going to keep digging. I'm going to keep pulling it out the ground because I know God has something special for me. As a matter of fact, I know I'm upset, but I'm going to put on my favorite song. I got a reason to praise the Lord, oh my soul. And just keep digging. This is intentional. David made it intentional. He said, I will bless the Lord, oh my soul. That was David saying that even when I don't feel like it, I'm going to bless him. I'm going to bless him. So this is the type of well you got to dig. God is able to do. I'm upset, but just what he said he would do. And I'm going to keep digging. Encouraging yourself. He's going to fulfill every promise to me. So I'm not going to give up on God, because he won't give up on me, because he's able. These are the type of wells you did. Another example. Tell me, what should I do when I've done all I can, and it seems like I can't make it through? What I'm going to do is stand. When there is nothing left to do, I'll just stand and watch the Lord see me through. Because after I've done all I can, I'll just. That well, you have to bishop yourself. Look at your neighbor and say, you got to bishop yourself. Last well, and we're done. Last well. Last well. Write this down. Is a well of reconciliation. This is the hard one. Well of reconciliation. Isaac had to dig a well of reconciliation. I'm going to read it, and then I'll explain. Genesis 26 and 32. It says, the Abimelech king, he came to him from Gerar and Azath, one of his friends, Phakal, the commander of the army. And Isaac said to him, can you hear the frustration in Isaac's voice? Why did you come to me, since you hate me and have sent me away from you? Mind you, these are the people who kicked him out. These are the people who didn't believe. These are the people who were like, you're unworthy. These are the people who tried to take what he had. And all of a sudden you show up. And Isaac says, why are you here? You don't even like me. You ain't support me. You left me here in the wilderness to try to figure this out for myself. We all in a famine. Talked about me. You lied on me. You said I was in pride because I was digging, and I didn't want to dig with your foolishness. 28 says, but they said, I know you're upset, Isaac, but we've certainly seen that the Lord is with you. That's the hard part. You don't like them, but they celebrate what God's doing in your life. Because you're faced with a decision. They said, we see that God's moving in your life. So we said, let there now be an oath between us, between you and us, and let us make a covenant with you. They were saying, we want to serve the Lord with you. Isaac had to quickly get over, but you don't like me. But you hurt me. You offended me. You know how long I've been out here by myself. Now you want to come back and say you want to serve God with me. Verse 30. So he made them a feast. A lot that happened between those parts. He made them a feast. His response, because me, personally, what I would do, petty. I will be, my pettiness will rise among me. But he said, you know what, I'm not going to be petty. I'm not going to do that. Because God's blessing me. So Isaac decides he made a feast for them. He served them. He served them. You don't like me, but how can I serve you? You lied on me, but how can I serve you? What he was taking the blessings God gave him and said, I'm going to share with you. That's a hard well to dig. And then it says they arose early in the morning and they swore an oath with one another, and Isaac sent them away, and they departed from him in peace. That means that they reconciled. He forgave them, and they were in right relationship again. That well of reconciliation, that's going to take some conversation. It's going to take some sitting down. It's going to take some bread breaking together. Why is bread breaking so important? And we're done. Why is bread breaking so important? I can say I forgive you, but if I want to invite you to my house to eat, that says a lot. That says I'm gonna be cordial with you in public, but what I have, you can't have. My space, you aren't welcome. But if God said that to us, I know you asked for forgiveness and I gave it to you, but you're not welcome to what I have in my house. You're not welcome to all heaven has. You're not welcome to come dwell with me. But God doesn't treat us like that. And then he goes and tells us, I need you to treat people the same way I treat you. Oh, that's a hard well to dig. And it's not easy. That's the day when the shovel gets really, really heavy. But he reconciled, and then you see how God responded to him. Said it came to pass the same day, Isaac's servants, the same day, Isaac's servants came to him and said, we found another well, and we found water. 33 says, and Isaac called it Sheba. Therefore, the name of the city is Beersheba. Isaac dug a well of reconciliation, and Sheba meant he made an oath with them not to hold or harbor how he felt to them, that he would do ministry with them again, just like it never happened. Sheba also means well of seven, well of completeness. Isaac wasn't complete in his walk of faith until he dealt with that unforgiveness. Well of completeness. I'm not made whole until I let it go. God said, unless you can handle these 5 wells, you might miss me. The first 4 may have been easy, but this last one, the reason he put it last is because that's something you're going to have to really, really work at. Isaac was not made complete until he said, I'm going to act like what you did to me never happened. Now that's forgiveness. That's whole forgiveness. That's not partial. I'm going to let you eat with me. I'm going to spend time with you. I'm going to talk with you. He spent the night with them. They left in the morning. Meaning, okay, we got to go. Meaning, he let his guard down with them. To sleep in a room with your enemies. He let his guard down. That's when you know he truly forgave them. He didn't sleep with one eye open. He provided them shelter and left himself open for them. So that's the 5 wells you got to dig. I pray you wrote them down. Well of faith. It's time to start over, reignite your trust in him. A well of perseverance. Keep digging through what they've done. Keep digging through the pain. Press through the hurt. Keep digging. A well of endurance. Dig past all the attacks of the enemy. Keep digging. Stand firm. Don't give up. A well of contentment. Learn to be okay with where God has you. Keep digging right there. Dig with joy. Dig with peace. Dig with happiness. Bishop your spirit. Bishop your emotions. And the last one, the well of reconciliation. You can't fully experience all God has for you harboring unforgiveness. Let it go so God has room to do what he desires to do in you and through you. Somebody stand to your feet and shout to the Lord for this word.
Thank you so much for joining us here at The Well. We pray that you were really able to encounter love, experience freedom, and were inspired to truly, truly live on purpose as God has designed and destined for each of us. God bless you. Thank you so much. And remember, here at The Well, we love you. We love you. Transformation is real, and there's plenty of room just for you. Have a blessed day.